Spiro Koulouris. Fascinating discussion. What do you know about gout? Some of the myths. I remember as a kid hearing that it was it's a rich man's, elitist type disease. And Spiro has a very interesting story. At 26, he went on a kind of a binge night of drinking. He was overweight and woke up screaming in pain. I got diagnosed with it and uric acid. I wonder if you know what your uric acid level is. But it's fascinating discussion. He has a big community. It affects about 2% of the population. I wonder if you know anybody who has it or if you have it yourself, and what it leads to and how it's treated. Great conversation with Spiro about a topic that I knew very little about. I have one good friend that has it. It's very much under control, but he's got a great background, great sense of humor, and I really enjoyed my conversations. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Thank you, Spiro Koulouris, for your time today. Very excited to talk to you. So what should we know about gout?
Well, gout affects about 2% of the general population. I would say the majority of folks are, I would say 75%, it leans more 75% men, 25% women, because women have estrogen until menopause, so that hormone protects them until in their 50s, and afterwards they're at a higher risk of gout. But gout is probably the most popular form of arthritis in the United States, and it usually affects folks over 50, but it is rising in young adults as well, because we'll talk about later what affects and what triggers gout. But I've read a lot of recent research that it is rising in young adults. And it's a condition that you want to take care of, because if you don't, you could have complications down the road with other diseases that you might be at higher risk.
I mean, I have one friend that gets it, and he describes the pain as incredible.
Yeah. It's so painful that when I got my first gout attack, I remember I was sleeping in the middle of the night. Usually it happens in the middle of the night because that's when it's coldest in your body extremities, and that's when you'll get an attack on the big toe. You can't even put your bed sheet on it. That's how sensitive your toe is to it, that you can't even sleep with a bed sheet on it. Yeah, it's very painful.
I think I heard you tell the story. I guess you had a couple of drinks one night, and and then all of a sudden, you start writhing in pain in bed later.
Yeah. That night I was out drinking a lot of Jack Daniels and Cokes.
Yeah.
And then I went home, and 3 a.m. I got my gout attack. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't sleep for the remainder of the night. So I woke up, called my doctor, hopped to his office with one foot, and he quickly diagnosed me with gout. And I didn't know what that was. And he made me do some blood work, confirmed that I had very high uric acid levels. and he told me that I would have to be on medication for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So that was a shock to me at the age of 26 because I'm pretty young. But at that time, I remember being obese. I was about 50 pounds overweight,
Ooh.
eating a lot of junk food, a lot of McDonald's, drinking a lot of Cokes, drinking a lot of alcohol. Which at the end, I found out those are gout triggers, being obese, eating junk
Mm.
food, drinking beverages with high fructose corn syrup, alcohol, all these contribute to gout. So afterwards, I remember it took about 3 weeks. I even got it in the knee a week later, and I was pretty much crippled.
Jeez.
So yeah, and then afterwards, I start doing some research about gout, and I started learning about it, looking at the medical studies and so on, and found out that diet plays a key role. And that's when I decided I had to make some changes.
Now it's hereditary, correct?
Yes and no. I mean, if you have the gene code that you're susceptible to it, yeah. In my sense, it was because I was born with a little thalassemia,
Hmm.
which wasn't dangerous or anything to that effect. But my doctor said that that could be the root cause of me getting gout at such a young age.
Interesting.
But for most folks, it's mostly dietary. I mean, if you're going to be obese and you're going to eat poorly, you're going to be at a higher risk of developing gout, and that's what's occurring in the United States.
Wow. Because, as a kid, I always heard it was like the rich disease or
Yeah, the rich
something.
man's disease. Yeah, that goes
Yeah.
back to the kings and queens of England, the aristocracy, because I mean they had access to rich foods, right? They had access to the all the red wine, the fine meats, pastries, and so on, and they were usually obese, right? Like King Henry, if you look at the
Mm,
images of his paintings back then, and they were more susceptible to gout, whereas the peasants didn't have access to these rich foods. They had access to whatever they farmed, right? So think of complex carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables, very little meat if they had access to. And mostly they got their protein through beans and other sources, so they were healthier. And that's why they call it the rich man's disease. That's where the stigma came out of.
hmm. So with this small element in your body, do you feel that if you weren't obese, it would have never risen? You would never.
In my case, it maybe would have been delayed. Maybe I would get it in my 40s instead of such a
Uh,
young age. So it was my fault being out of shape and obese and eating poorly. Because I mean, the top five gout triggers, I would say, when people complain about a gout attack, either they drank too much the night before, either they had a very big steak or a lobster, so seafood and protein. Think of any type of red meat. That is a gout trigger. Either they had lots of sugar, mostly artificial sugars like high fructose corn syrup. They're thinking drinking a lot of Coke or Pepsi. Um, and after that, processed meats and processed foods, so sausages, hot dogs. Those are very dangerous for gout. Those foods raise uric acid levels. And then processed snacks that you see in the grocery stores, all that raises uric acid levels as well. So uric acid, to explain a little bit what uric acid is, and that's what causes gout. Everybody produces uric acid, right? And for healthy people, it quickly gets expelled via the urine. But for folks who the kidneys don't work properly, it remains in the body
hmm.
and then it crystallizes in the joints, and that's how you get your gout attack. So that's the issue with gout sufferers is they can't flush enough uric acid out of the body via the urine. So it remains in their body and then crystallizes in the joints, and that's how they get a gout attack. And that's where you have to start treatment.
Hmm. And I mean, what you described, Spiro, with with the processed foods and corn syrup. I mean, this is the typical American diet. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah,
so
unfortunately,
all this kind of food is so so readily available and so inexpensive.
that's right.
And so people have to really be cautious about it.
Yeah, you have to be conscious. So you have to make a decision and change your lifestyle and diet, and that takes discipline. And
Mm.
that's when I decided to make changes. I started blogging about nutrition and gout a few years back, and then the community started developing with our website. And I looked at all the studies, the big studies done, and diet plays a key role. So if you limit the foods I mentioned that are gout triggers, not necessarily removing them entirely, but limit
Mm,
them, you're going to have a big change in an outcome of your health. But that takes discipline. So to start incorporating healthy foods and removing the garbage, that takes hard work. It's not going to happen overnight. Like I tell other gout sufferers, you start, you're going to fail. One day you might be eating very healthy, more vegetarian. Because I advocate in my book on a diet that comprises the ideal gout diet, which comprises of 80% complex carbohydrates. I recommend. So think of fruits and vegetables, 100% whole grain wheat bread, 100% whole grain pastas and rice, beans for protein. So more of a plant-based diet. If you suffer from gout, you have to move yourself and transition towards a plant-based diet. And then
mm,
10% of your daily calories can be protein, as in meat. I recommend lean meats. So think of turkey, chicken breast, some fish. You could even have a steak, but make sure it's a less fatty cut. There's less fat on it. Trim the fat. Um, Avoid totally processed meats because that's a no-no in a gout diet. Stick to that, and then 10% of the last 10% of your daily calories can be fat. So think of eggs, dairy, cheeses, butter, milk, and so on. Uh, so if you notice, 20%, I limit to 20%, which is fat and protein, which is basically animal-based food, so animal-based protein and fats, right? That's where gout sufferers get in trouble. The reason
mm.
being the kidneys take longer to break down a steak, a piece of cheese, compared to a vegetable, any vegetable like carrot salad, right? It'll take a few hours, whereas a meat could take up to 90 hours for your kidneys to break down. So it
Yeah.
strains the kidneys, and the harder the kidneys work, the more uric acid your body produces. And if it doesn't flush out the excess uric acid, you'll get a gout attack. So that's the ideal gout diet I advocate. If you do want to become a vegetarian, go for it. I recommend that. It's even better for gout sufferers to be, to eat more plant-based foods for the kidneys to work more properly and do their job and not produce as much uric acid in the body. But if you like your steak like I do once in a while, you want to limit some some meat and some dairy in your diet. I always recommend 4 to 6 ounces if you're going to have meat. So that's about 200 calories in a day. So use the palm of your hand to measure the size and have that one portion in one day. Don't have meat 3 times a day. You're going to have it once a day, and that's
Mm.
it. So that's what I advocate, and that's what I learned, and that takes discipline, right, to change your diet because you got to start incorporating new foods, and your palate is slowly changing. Sometimes you're going to fail. You're going to have a cheeseburger instead of a bean burrito, and but get up the next day and keep working at it, and you'll notice your buds, your taste buds will change, and with time, you're going to be craving more healthy foods and not crave as much that
Mm.
cheeseburger or hot dog or whatever bad food you used to eat, and it's going to change your life forever.
It's amazing when you eat well, how your body just rewards you. Similar to working out, afterwards you feel so, your body really thanks you for it. So the uric acid. So if you have a certain level, you're going to eventually feel the symptoms or get gout, regardless of what you do.
No, some folks are non-symptomatic, so
Ah,
some will have high uric acid levels but not get gout. But it doesn't mean you can't get another condition like arthritis,
ah.
osteoarthritis, sister conditions to gout, which are part of the same family. So if you have high
Hmm.
uric acid, it could hit you a different way. So it's very important to stay below. When you do a blood test, you could ask your doctor what your uric acid level is. As long as it's below 6 mgdl, you're in the safe zone. Usually doctors prefer it under 4.5. But if you're under 6, you're pretty much fine. Over 6 is where I'd worry and I'd look to changing my diet.
Wow. And are you a vegetarian, Spiro? No, you said
No,
you like
but
steak.
I eat a lot of plant based. I'll have meat once a day if I do, and then I'll skip a day. I'll just have more vegetarian meals.
Hmm.
Then the other day I'll have some meat. Usually I stick with chicken, fish, some turkey, and red meat maybe once a week max.
And the medication you take now for the gout, does it relieve the symptoms? Are you in pain?
No, I haven't been in pain for years, so it's under control. I started off at 300 milligrams of allopurinol. That's the drug usually that gout patients will take for the rest of their lives to control uric acid, to make sure you don't get another gout attack. But with diet alone, I've managed to lower it to 100
Wow.
milligrams daily. So changing your diet does help. You will get results. So a lot of other gout sufferers, they just want to take the pill and eat whatever they want. But I
Mm.
tell them eventually, in 10 years from now, your doctor's going to raise your allopurinol dosage and it's going to get higher and higher. That's not good for the body either. So try um, and eat well and help yourself and avoid the increased dosages over the years. And other gout sufferers will get off of medication. I would say gout studies have shown and doctors have said is one of the conditions that patients like to avoid mostly for their medication. And about 50% of gout sufferers will avoid taking the medication because when you don't feel symptomatic, you don't feel like you have to take your medication, right?
Mm.
So, and that's dangerous because I mean, you could go a year or two without getting a gout attack, but eventually it'll catch up. You will get that gout attack, and you're going to have to treat it more aggressively, right? And you don't want to get numerous gout attacks because then that could cause other issues with your foot. You could get bone erosion, right? Issues with your ligaments. And then over the years, it could even climb your body. And the way it climbs, it'll hit your knee afterwards, and then it could climb up to the elbows,
Oh my
to
goodness.
the hands, right, and to the back. So, and that's when it gets dangerous. You don't want it to climb that high. You want to keep it in the foot area if you do get any flare ups, that's for sure.
Is it limited to one foot?
No, it could travel to the next foot either. Also, yeah.
How about with you?
Yeah, I think I've gotten it once on the other foot. This was in the early part where I was experimenting. I remember not taking medication, and I would get a gout attack, and I think it
Oh my
reached.
goodness.
It started from the first foot, and then a few weeks later went to the other foot. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
incredible. So if you stop taking the medication, you'll feel pain in how soon?
Well, it could go on because your body gets used to it, right? So it could
Right.
go on for years, maybe a year or so. But again, if you trigger it with some type of eating of a bad eating event, you're having lobster and 10 drinks of alcohol in one night, that could trigger it too. So it all depends how how your diet goes during that time.
And exercise. Of course, it's important to be healthy. You need exercise, but how does it affect gout?
Well, for gout, I advocate exercise. I recommend it. First of all, it's going to keep you healthy and keep you at your ideal weight. You want to
Mm.
remain at your ideal weight. You don't want to be overweight because that raises uric acid levels. And weight training, which I do a few times a week, will help strengthen the joints. And I like to do a lot of foot and leg exercises to re-strengthen those joints and keep him stronger for the future. So I strongly recommend exercise because that also helps to lower uric acid levels in the body. And I also recommend for folks that have joint stiffness or joint pain, if they can't do strenuous exercises like working out at the gym, um, I recommend cycling, which has a lower impact on the joints, and
Mm.
swimming. And walking. If you could do your 10,000 steps a day, that also helps. Some folks don't like to exercise, so go walk at least 10,000 steps a day. That's going to help strengthen the foot as well. And there's swimming, like I said, cycling. That's pretty much it. I don't recommend jogging or running because that impacts the joints and could cause more deterioration long term if you're suffering from gout.
Is there a surgery that can help remove it?
No, surgery is only involved when you have extremely bad gout, which they call tophi. And tophi is when you get these lumps under your skin,
Ugh.
and it's very painful. And that's when doctors will usually get involved and recommend surgery. But other than that, no, you can remove uric acid crystals with surgery. There's another treatment which is through corticosteroids through injection. That will relieve the inflammation as well. That's another treatment for gout.
So it'll just relieve the pain that you're getting from
Yeah,
the
that's
foot.
only used during a gout attack, not
Ah,
to
right.
control uric acid levels, only when you have the painful inflammation. There's two solutions for that. It's either colchicine, which is taken orally, or NSAIDs, which are corticosteroids injected to the joint, and you get that relief.
What's the future of treatment with gout? Is there something coming?
No, they have these new medications that came out, like febuxostat and some others, but that's more for folks that don't respond well to allopurinol and other folks who have kidney disease. Because gout, if you don't take care of your gout, you also have you're at high risk of developing other complications. And gout is closely related to kidney disease because that's where uric acid is produced. So a lot of
Mm.
folks will have kidney stones or kidney disease. Other folks can get arthritis or even become diabetic. Um, so it's a disease that you want to take control of, and that's why it's very important that you incorporate a healthy diet and eat the foods that I recommend on my website and book for you to control that and avoid getting those other complications down the road.
So for those of us who have never really monitored their uric levels or, not sure, where they stand, I mean, what's the best way to prevent this if you've never had an attack,
That's the thing. Regardless, you gotta eat healthy and stay healthy, right?
right?
So if not something, depending on your genetic makeup, you might be with your genetic makeup at a higher risk of developing diabetes or arthritis. Whereas my genetic makeup, I was more at a higher risk of developing gout. So if you're not eating right and you're obese and you're not healthy, you will become diabetic. I will become a gout sufferer, right? Diagnosed with gout.
Mhm.
Others, somebody else with arthritis, somebody else with heart disease, and so on, and somebody else with kidney stones. So it all comes down to discipline and making changes in your life because the Western diet is a killer, and we all know it, and we're starting to realize it slowly. So it takes a big lifestyle change.
Your parents, did they ever have gout?
No, none of them. No.
It's amazing. So when you were diagnosed with this, at you said 26 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
I mean, there must have been this is kind of a rock bottom moment. You're overweight. You're
Yeah, it was actually. It was a bit depressing, obviously, frustrating, I would say, with yourself. So it does affect your psychology a bit. But I mean, when I started writing about it and wrote the book, and then people start sharing their experiences, you see that you're not alone, and you see the studies, and you see that if you make the lifestyle changes and the dietary changes, you will get results. You're going to get results for the better.
I like
And
what
you
you
could
said.
you could live a good quality of life
Right.
with any disease if you have it under control.
Yeah, with a lot of the medications. Any side effects of the medication today?
No, no, none. Some folks will complain about a rash, and that's about it.
I like what you said earlier about, when you're unhealthy, when you're obese, and on your Twitter or X there, I saw you had some, the years went by, how much it's become more of an issue in the recent years. And anything can happen. Like you said, it might be gout, it might be diabetes, it might be, blood pressure, or whatever, or
That's right.
cholesterol. It's just important to stay healthy.
Yeah, yeah, that is the key. Yeah, I mean, our bodies are meant to live up to 100, right? How many of us
Mm,
are living up to 100? So, diet plays a big role in our lives, unfortunately. Like you could go back 100 years, we didn't have the number of cancer cases that we have, right?
mm.
And nowadays, cancer is very prevalent everywhere. So this plays a role. It's not only environmental, but it's mostly diet, I would say.
It's absolutely, and the system is just geared for us. Not, you go into the grocery, there's just so many, you try to stay on the perimeter of the grocery, right? So you're eating the fresher stuff, and the aisles is just full of, like, seed oils and processed, and they're so inexpensive, and they're so accessible, and damn, they taste good, Spiro,
Yeah, that's
and
the problem. Yeah,
that is and even, I lost a bunch of weight, and one of the easiest things I did was stop drinking soda. I mean, soda's full of corn syrup, sugar, and just empty calories. But just making that change is very healthy.
yeah, definitely. Um, the problem with sugar, it's addictive, right? It's more addictive
Right.
than cocaine. So it hits that part of the brain, the pleasure part of your brain. So if you're struggling with it, you're probably going to need professional help. You're going to probably seek a nutritionist, maybe even a psychologist, and work at it. It's going to take a long time and discipline. So, but it's going to be for the better. But I know some people just can't control themselves, and you see it, unfortunately. And when it comes to oils, the only oil I recommend is extra virgin olive oil.
Right.
All those other oils is a big no-no.
Oh, they're petroleum based, and
Yeah,
if you saw the way, grapeseed oil or canola oil, if you saw the way it was made, you would never,
yeah,
ever. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just, my goodness. I guess the other one, maybe occasionally avocado oil is not that bad, but yeah,
yeah.
extra virgin is
You
really
can't go wrong with it.
you can't go
And
wrong with it.
and I know because I eat it plenty. I put it everywhere, and my doctor says he hasn't seen cholesterol levels like that
Mm,
ever in his life. He goes, "You have some of the best cholesterol numbers I've ever seen." So it does help produce that good cholesterol.
sure does. My father's from Italy, and so, a lot of olive oils, a lot of olives there. The big issue now, of course, with olive oil is that you have to make sure it's single source olive oil. I don't know if you're familiar, but
Yeah.
when you see the olive oil from the different countries, they all have different rules, and sometimes they're
Mm.
putting other kinds of oil in it.
Yes, mixing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you got to look at the certifications
Yes.
when you purchase it. That's right.
Yeah, and make sure it's single source,
Yeah.
because it's becoming so popular. But, Spiro, money gets involved, right? And then people get greedy and they try to bypass rules, and um, it's absolutely a terrible thing. And so the three pillars, when I always think of health, are nutrition, diet, what you're eating, exercise, and then sleep.
Yeah. Sleep's important. For gout, I would say it probably is because I mean I'm sure there hasn't been any studies with uric acid and sleep, but
Mm,
I'm pretty sure that there's a correlation there somewhere because there's other studies that show that the better you sleep, the longer you live, the less prone to disease. So yeah, I would recommend sleep as an important pillar in your health. First of all, you feel so much better when you do get
mm, mm.
those recommended hours, anywhere between 7 and 9, depending who you are. But yeah, sleep's very important, I would say, for overall health and longevity.
So as an adolescent, were you active? You said at 26 when this happened, you were overweight. Were you in shape at one point and then kind of slipped for a while, or had you always kind of been inactive?
Yeah, you're usually active when you're a teenager, right? You're playing with your
Right.
friends, and once you start going to college, you start slowing down
Mm,
slowly, slowly, and then early 20s, all you want to do is go out and party, right, with
yeah.
friends. And that's where you get in trouble. And that's why there's a big rise in young adults as well of gout cases and being diagnosed with gout because of the drinking epidemic. So many people are drinking nowadays at a younger age and drinking heavily.
Mm.
And that spikes uric acid levels, and you get some folks in their early 20s getting gout now on an alarming level.
So 26, you get this, terrible news. You start getting put on medication. Do you completely change your diet and your exercise, or you slowly go into it? What happens next,
It's a
Spiro?
slow progression. Yeah, I would say it's a
Mm,
slow progression. And it's going to be a slow progression for anybody else. It's not going to happen overnight. What I recommend folks do is maybe incorporate a diary and start writing what they eat. and see where they made mistakes. Not only that, but for gout sufferers, if you get a flare up, you want to see what could be the cause of that flare up. So you could go back to your diary the day or two before and see what foods you ate, and then maybe find a pattern there of maybe a food affecting you when it comes to gout. And then maybe start exercising, and that's very difficult for most, but somehow find the motivation and get active. And if you don't like to exercise, get a Fitbit watch and start walking at least
Mm.
10,000 steps a day. And that's pretty much easy, and everybody can do that.
Yeah, I have a technology background, and I always want to know how technology affects this. But certainly in the exercise industry, those, the watches have become way, down in price. You don't have to go to a really expensive gym. You could do a lot of things with your own weight. There's so many other solutions there as well. I think that's good advice. I wonder how how long look, what did you do after at that point where you got the news you were 50 pounds overweight? Eventually you lost it, you came back to a point. What did you do specifically?
Oh, it was mostly diet at that point. I started eating bigger salads with just protein less, no junk. I wasn't eating out.
Mm,
Uh, Completely stopped the colas. I only drank water, tea, herbal teas, and coffee,
yeah.
and incorporated more vegetables, more complex carbs. Basically, I switched everything, so the white pasta became 100% whole grain pasta.
Mm,
The white rices became 100% whole grain rice. I only buy now. The breads as well. I'll get Ezekiel 100% whole grain toast at the
really?
market. Yeah. You pay double, but you're paying for quality. I remember
Yeah.
my great grandmother used to make bread from back in the country in Greece, and Ezekiel, I would say, is the closest bread
Yeah.
that tastes that way, the old way that our grandparents used to make it.
Yeah.
And no more fried. I don't eat no more fried food.
Mm,
Never.
mm.
Very. I'll have a fry or two just to remind myself of how they taste, but I'll never dig in and eat fried food. No, never. I'll enjoy a cheeseburger. I'm a big fan of burgers once in a while. A good steak, of course. And that's as bad as I get with my diet.
That Ezekiel bread is something we have to here in the States. I have to get it frozen because it can't stay fresh for that long, right? Is it
I
there
put it in
as
the
well?
fridge. Yeah, you get it
Yeah,
frozen. I put it in the fridge.
you
Yeah,
put a
and then
fridge.
toast it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you get the sprouts in it and
the
everything.
sprouts exactly.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, you toast it and maybe even put a little olive oil on it,
Yeah,
and it's yeah, it's filling and it's
yeah.
uh very
It's more
very
nutrient dense.
yeah. Oh, it's very
Yeah,
filling. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I ever had a sandwich on it, put it because it's so dense. It's very interesting. I usually maybe I put an egg on it or some spinach or a little olive oil or something, but that have an actual sandwich on it with turkey in it or something. That might be something. Have you tried that? Do you do
yeah.
that?
I've tried it. Yeah. Usually, I'll boil a couple of eggs, chop them up, and put them in between with some olive oil, like you said, maybe a slice of cheese, and that's a sandwich that
Nice.
I usually eat. I'll have with icicle bread. Yeah.
Yeah. You also mentioned salads before. One big thing about the salads, and we talked about, is that the dressings are just full of that seed oil. Oh my
Yeah, I
goodness.
only stick to olive oil and apple cider vinegar for the
Yeah, that's
most
it.
part as my dressing, and I sprinkle some oregano, sea salt, and that's it. That's the
Yeah.
max.
I mean, I see some of these salads at the restaurants, and I tell you, a cheeseburger and fries probably has less calories in those. I mean, there's just
Yeah,
they're full of cheese and those
yeah,
nacho chips and just those dressings and oh my, there's yeah, to think it's not always the most healthiest option. You are getting greens, right? You that's which is good, and
yeah,
tomatoes and everything
yeah,
else, but
yeah,
everything else that gets put on there is something. So I started my business Spiro in the '90s, and I was working way too hard, and I got up to 340 pounds just on soda and eating pizza late at night, and I went to the doctor and she told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. So,
wow,
my kind of rock bottom, yours was, getting this. So mine was, what have I done to myself? I'm selfish to think about myself. I have my daughter, this beautiful girl, that I helped bring into this world. I need to make a radical change. And I'm driving back and I'm, punching the steering wheels. I did this to myself and I'm going to get out of it. So I spent the next 6, 7 months. I changed everything I did, and I lost about 130 pounds, and I kept it off. The other thing, people go on these diets, and when they lose the weight, they look at it as a finishing line, like they're all done. You have to continue. What do we see? 95% people gain the weight back, and it's
Yeah.
unhealthy to go back and forth. So people always ask me how I did it, Spiro. Yeah, how'd you lose that weight? Because losing the multi-billion-dollar industry, the weight loss industry, and I always say one word, and you alluded to it earlier. It's discipline, right? That's how I lost the weight. I got focused. I showed restraint, etc., and I lost the weight, and I kept it off. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Oh, it's huge. I would say it's probably everything. Without it, you can't have any success. So you got to stay
Mm.
disciplined because temptation when it comes to food is everywhere. It's okay to have a cheat day on a Saturday night. You'll go out to that restaurant and have that salad dressing, like you said, right? But keep it at a limit. That's key, and that takes discipline. So discipline is key for diet and for exercise because it becomes a routine. And that's why I recommend for gout sufferers maybe start off with a diary to keep you more conscious of what you're
Mm.
eating and what you're doing with your lifestyle, and that will keep you on the correct road for the long term. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be an overnight thing. You're talking staying this course the long term, and that takes discipline, lots of it. And then you'll feel better for it. And people that are more disciplined have been shown through studies are happier in life. So I would take that up definitely.
Yeah, I like what you've said. Without it, you can't have success. There's no wrong answer to how discipline plays a role in your life, and with given your background and everything specifically about gout, it's an interesting answer. And when it comes to nutrition, I don't know. It's Spiro. I mean, here in North America, right? In the Americas, I mean, is it the single greatest threat against our longevity, our health is nutrition? I mean, the industry is just set up to for us to keep consuming this bad stuff that's really inaccessible, excuse me, inexpensive and very accessible. So we have to fight. We have to be disciplined in order to stay fit.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely, because temptation is everywhere. I was reading yesterday on Twitter 15% obesity rate back in 75 in the US, and now it's at 42%. So the trend is not dropping, it's only worsening, right? So, and you see those folks that are obese and they're suffering through their bodies, right? A lot of them are on those chairs and so on. And I don't know what it's going to take to change them. Like you said, a life altering event, like a big scare, that usually changes you. My
Mhm.
gout attack was a big scare at the age
Right,
of 26, and that changed me. But you don't want it to go to that point.
right.
So at the end of the day, when I see people that are obese, I like to recommend here and there, you got to do some changes. You look at me, I had gout. Look what happened. I was obese. Try to be a good example to other people, and that sometimes it gets through to them, and they make changes on their own. And that's all we can be is a good example and have more information on the internet, like you do with your show, my website, and so on, and
Yeah,
educate
and
people.
educate them and show them it's not that hard. I'm not extraordinary, believe me. I'm not.
Yeah,
Everybody says if I could do it, everybody could do it, but I'm not sure if that's the case. But I just, I had this moment. And also another thing about obesity is that I was just talking to somebody earlier today about nutrition, and there are people with six pack abs who are still not healthy.
yeah, that's true.
So there's also that obesity. You can actually see it, but there's lots of, what do they call it? Skinny fat or something. I think they call it
Yeah,
something like that. Where their levels, they do blood work and their levels are terrible as well. When we see somebody obese, we can try to help them, and it's always a touchy subject. But just because you're not overweight doesn't mean that you're not healthy.
No, exactly. You got back the muscle, but you could still be eating the wrong foods,
Yes.
and inside slowly killing yourself. Yeah, definitely.
Mm. Spiro, how do you feel about intermittent fasting?
Listen, I'm not against it. I know for gout, you can't do extreme type of fasting because that spikes uric acid levels.
Mm.
Um, but intermittent, I mean, if you wait until midday to have your first meal, that's fine. I've actually experimented with that. It's not that bad, and it does help keeping you fit and keeping the weight down. But the more extreme fasting, anything more than that for gout sufferers, studies have shown that it could spike uric acid levels and cause a gout
Mm.
attack. That's specific though to gout sufferers. I mean, if you're a normal, healthy person, you shouldn't have any issue. You've experimented with that? Do you do that every morning?
I do it not every day, but I do it. I find it helps with my focus too. It's just,
Yeah,
we just don't need as much food as we think we do.
that's right. That's an important point to
Yeah.
make. Yeah, it's true, and your portions can be very small.
Yes.
And you'll notice after eating, wait 5 minutes, and if your hunger usually leaves because people just keep eating, and until
Mm.
the signals get sent to the brain, they think they're not full, but then they overeat because then they got the signal 5 minutes late, and then they feel stuffed. But that's a very valid point. Food portions is another big issue with diet in the West. And it's something that we have to go back to. If you look at the plates in the 1950s, the plates we have
Mm.
today, it's a big difference in size. So we used to eat much smaller portions 70, 80 years ago compared to now.
Even when they first started making Coca-Cola, it was like 6-ounce bottles or so,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
these little
yeah.
things, and now we've
Smaller
got
portions.
the big gulp, which are 48 out, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned Greece. I told my father's from Italy, and I spent a lot of time over there. You know, Americans think Italians eat pasta every day. I mean, once a week on Sunday, and it's only a little bit. It's
Mm,
a lot of greens, a lot of fish, the Mediterranean
Mediterranean
diet,
diet. That's right.
very
That's right.
healthy, and
Very healthy.
it's not what it's not this kind of myth that they're doing. They walk everywhere, Spiro,
Yeah,
right?
they
They
walk everywhere. They're
walk.
active. Yeah.
They're active, and I love walking after a good meal. When we go out, I try to park the car far away, a little further, so we have to walk a little bit, kind of fool ourselves. The way a lot of the cities are set up, you have to drive everywhere. Los Angeles set up that way. New York City is very good for walking. It's a great walking city, but that helps as well. The other thing is you mentioned I kind of live by 80/20, right? 80% of the time I'm intermittent fasting. I'm trying to keep my calories, under 2000. I'm trying to have well balance of I try to eat, deep greens 3 times a week, your spinach and
Hmm.
your deep greens. But there is 20% of the time, like you said, you go on a Saturday night, you go with some friends and you have a burger, you may have some wings. I mean, you have to have that balance. You
Yeah, you
can't
do.
you can't be extreme because then
No,
you'll be
no.
miserable.
Some folks can be extreme and enjoy it, but
Mm,
if you like those foods and you enjoy them, like I enjoy a good cheeseburger, you just want to
me
remind
too.
yourself how good it tastes once in a while.
That's right.
And it's not that bad. I mean, a cheeseburger is not fully processed, like a sausage or a hot dog. Um, Fine, it's very high in fat and calories, but once a week, you could have a cheat meal. That's fine.
I agree. A couple tips I like to give on that. One, drinking a lot of water because it suppresses your appetite a bit.
Yeah.
And then two, when you're having those meals, slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
Enjoy it.
slowing down and chew it, yeah,
Yeah.
properly and digest it properly,
Yeah. Yeah. Put
yeah.
it down. Have a bite of the burger and put it down. And just don't woof it. It's
Yeah, don't wolf it, yeah.
don't enjoy it because this is your kind of your cheat meal. Spirit, what motivates you?
Ah, wanna live a long life.
Mm,
You see a lot of people start going in their 50s, 60s, you don't wanna be one of those, right?
mm.
Um, I recently, lost a cousin through leukemia at a young age. He was 50, in his 50s, and so on, and you hear other folks, dying early, and like I said, not too many people make 100. It's hard to hit that century mark. And you wanna live a long life, to see your kids, your grandkids, and so on. And I think that's my motivation. How about yours?
Similar.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have kids, and yeah, yeah, very, very similar to yours. I think when we were younger, we had money involved, right? And then that was short lived. That doesn't really
yeah,
have, and now
yeah,
it's
yeah.
and so given that, how do you measure success?
Peace of mind.
Mm,
If you can sleep at night and not stress, you're successful. Most people are so stressed out, unhealthy. So if you're healthy, your family's healthy, you're enjoying some type of work that fulfills you, um, that's success right there. I mean, you don't have to be a multimillionaire to feel successful because you see multimillionaires, a lot of them don't feel happy, don't look happy, and many are miserable actually.
mm,
And money, I would say, is the icing on the cake.
mm,
That's how important it is. Not that important. If you have it, it's great. It facilitates some stuff in life. But if you have a healthy family, your health, so you could have longevity and peace of mind, that's your cake.
yeah, it certainly is. Well, Spiro, I'm so glad we set this up. I love your community that you have. If anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, visit our website if you know anybody that suffers from gout or you suffer from gout. Visit goutandyou.com. Um, you can sign up to our email list and keep active. We'll keep updating on the latest studies about gout, my latest articles. And if you have any questions, you could email me at info@goutandyou.com. I usually respond within 24 hours to all email inquiries. And that's pretty much it. I'm also the author of Gout and You, the Ultimate Gout Diet and Cookbook. That could help you get started on what foods to eat and what foods to avoid when it comes to gout. And it also has 100 recipes to help you get started. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just email me and I'll answer your questions and visit our site.
Fantastic. You're also on Facebook, Twitter, X,
Yeah,
and
on the social
YouTube.
media. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
I've watched them. You do a great job with that. Spiro, thanks so much. When I'm in your area, hopefully maybe we can get together and have a cup
Sure.
of tea.
Yeah, sounds good, Joe. Thank you very much for having me.
You be well. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.